So what rules should companies follow to be exceptional? If only it were that easy. Well, apparently it is. Our next guest narrowed it down to just 3. Joining us now is strategy expert Michael Raynor, Deloitte Services director and co-author of the new book, The 3 Rules, How Exceptional Companies Think. So we got to get right to the 3 rules. That's it? There's just 3?
Only 3.
Okay, your first rule.
Better before cheaper. So if companies are trying to figure out how they are going to create value for their customers, we've concluded that companies that deliver exceptional performance over the long run do it by focusing on what we call non-price dimensions of value. So make a better widget, not a cheaper widget. That's rule 1.
The better, people are going to want the better regardless.
Pretty much, yeah.
Your next one interests me, number 2.
Revenue before cost. So that answers the question, how does a great company capture value for itself? I mean, if you create value for your customers, but they get to keep it all, where's the fun in that? So profits are important, obviously. And what we found is that great companies, exceptional performing companies, they drive superior profitability through higher revenue, not through lower cost. And that was a bit of a surprise.
That means they're selling more stuff, basically.
Selling either higher prices or higher volumes or a combination of both.
What's your thought, though, on the trend lately that companies are missing revenue but beating on the bottom line because they're cost-cutting?
Well, that's a bit of a pathology, I think. It's tempting to make the numbers. I think it's more important to make the plan, right? The plan is to deliver value for customers over the long haul, and if you succumb to those short-term temptations, I think you actually undermine what it is you're trying to achieve.
It's a good lesson learned, because I think we're so myopic these days just to make those Wall Street analyst numbers, right? And finally, your third rule?
Well, a third rule is there are no other rules. And we think that's actually kind of important, because there's a lot of rules of thumb, a lot of myths, if you will, that people use to run their businesses frequently. They'll say things like innovation is absolutely crucial. Well, sometimes innovation is absolutely crucial, and you know what? Sometimes it's not. Mergers and acquisitions, some people tell you they're indispensable, others tell you they're poison. What we found is that yes to both.
Right.
And so really the third rule is do anything you have to in order to adhere to those first 2 rules.
So be very flexible. Okay, let's talk about who's doing it right. What companies are following your rules?
Well, 3 of the companies, there's 27 in-depth case studies in the book that are drawn from a population of over 344 that we look at into a lesser degree of detail. And 3 of them that kind of catch people's eye. You've heard of Merck, obviously, the pharmaceutical company. Merck is what we call a miracle worker. Abercrombie & Fitch, the retailer, another company that a lot of people are familiar with. But some smaller companies that you might not be so top of mind. So Heartland Express, which is a trucking company based, oddly enough, in the Heartland.
Now, take an Abercrombie & Fitch. Their stuff could arguably be pretty expensive.
Absolutely, and they're able to earn those prices from their customers because they have the customer experience, the brand, the fashions that warrant that in the eyes of their customers.
Where does Apple fall in all this? So
Apple has been up and down over its lifetime, right? So we take the very long view. We look at the entire corporate lifetime. But over the last 10 years, this won't come as a surprise to anyone that follows the company. They've been on a real tear. And I would suggest that the reason their performance has been so remarkable is that indeed you look at what they've done and it really has adhered to those rules. Better before cheaper, right? People don't buy Apple products because they're cheap. They buy them because they're better. And they enjoy both higher unit prices and, remarkably, higher volumes than many of their competitors.
How do you apply these rules to a startup? You know, I'm a little business at home, whatever, making brownies.
Sure. Well, the good news about focusing on public companies in the U.S. is that there are lots of data. And second, public companies in the U.S. don't have to be billion-dollar organizations. We see a lot of companies in our database that are 10, 15, 20 million a year in revenue. That's not your corner dry cleaner. I'm not confused, but it's not. You don't have to be in the Fortune 500 for these rules to apply.
It's sort of like keep it simple, stupid, eh? Michael Raynor of Deloitte Services. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Good stuff.